morning. You're listening to the Blainsville Show, heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVMFM.org, and it looks like we're also on WPVM on Facebook Live. So I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in the Asheville area. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my first guest, Rodney Smith.
Welcome,
Morning, Rodney.
How are you?
Great, Rodney. And you can also say hello to all your fans and friends on Facebook.
Hello, both of you fans and friends.
Okay, great. And I should also mention to our listeners that Rodney, I think, sets the record. This is now, I think, the 43rd appearance on the Blainsville Show.
I actually don't leave. I sleep under the desk out in the lobby.
Okay, well, anyway, Rodney, I think, has been my most frequent guest on the show, and I really appreciate that.
I'm glad to be back.
And Rodney has been part of the Asheville theater scene for the better part of the last decade. He began the journey acting in productions for multiple local theater companies, and over the last 4 years he has transitioned into writing and directing. Credits include, but are not limited to, his own stage adaptation of Night of the Living Dead, and who would have thought that would have been a fun show to watch?
It was fun. We had a good time doing it.
A blast, a show about vampires, and I couldn't believe it.
Zombies. Actually.
Zombies, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is there a difference? Is that right?
It was a little bit, but it's a neck, brain, you know.
What is the difference?
Vampire, let's see, sucks your blood, turns into a bat. Zombie, undead, eats your brains.
Yeah, is that it? Okay, we don't quite have Rodney where I want him to be, so
Okay.
I think there we go. It sounds a little bit better.
Yeah, and you can actually bring up the headphones a little bit more if you don't mind.
Okay.
I know I told you to.
Great. Okay, and that'll be
There
better.
we go. That's a little better.
That'll be better for Facebook Live.
Okay.
Anyway, so now we learn the difference between zombies and vampires. Rodney has also had a fun show with Terry Tempest, the final interview, his own full-time Tilt Bookie and the Big Hang Diner. I love the
Easy
title.
for you to say.
Exactly. He is a core writer, performer, sound designer, and production of the Super Happy Radio Hour comedy podcast, and head writer director of the Crimes and Misdemeanings comedy variety show.
Yep.
He's also an associate producer for the Magnetic Theater. When not working in theater, he's an award-winning photographer doing business as Tempest Budget Design. Also, you telling me off there, Rodney, you now have another gig in your spare time, and you're where on weekends?
I'm at Conundrum on weekends doing wine tastings and beer tastings in the dark, which is a lot of fun. Lets me sort of tap back into my old stand-up days and kind of do crowd work with wonderful visitors from out of town and feed them mystery liquid that they drink without question. It's a lot of fun.
And the question is, Rodney, do you ever sleep?
You know, no, it doesn't seem like it. I like to keep moving, like a shark, just keep swimming.
Who's got a kick out of this? We asked Rodney to give us some information on what we're going to talk about today, and he responded at 3:30 in the morning.
That's prime time for me, yeah.
Also, another question I was wondering about you, Rodney, is that in terms of doing many different things, you seem to be doing about like 17 different things at once. Is that true?
It seems that way sometimes. You know, sometimes it's photography, sometimes it's writing, sometimes it's putting a show together, but I guess to me it's all part of one big tapestry. It doesn't feel like I'm doing bunches of different things. It kind of feels like they're all part of, you know, if I'm doing sketch writing for a show that's coming up, that's still part of my theater plans for the year. So yeah, sometimes it's difficult to focus on one piece of the project, but it's all storytelling to me. So, you know, whether it's writing comedy pieces or directing a show or taking photos, it's all part of this life story that I kind of feel like I like to keep telling every day.
Do you know how to juggle?
I do know how to juggle. I can do 3. That's about it.
Well, that's not 2 more than I can do. But I'm saying, I would think that that's sort of what you do. You know, or the thing I wonder about you too. Do you own like a pair of roller skates?
I don't own roller skates.
You would think, you know, in terms of where you're going. Like, how do you even keep track of where you're supposed to be at any given time?
It's pretty lucky that I get anywhere at any given point. No, I'm one of these people that live and die by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. You know, that's why even when we occasionally get together for lunch, it's like, okay, I need to plan this a week in advance and have it on my calendar and set reminders because. No, life tells me what to do. I don't tell it what to do. I just sort of follow its lead.
Because I imagine too, your calendar, is it on a phone?
Yeah.
Because I wonder about at times, whatever happened if the phone wasn't working or misplaced the phone?
Yeah, I would never show up any place. That's actually probably true. I think if I didn't have some way to track my life, I would never keep up with it.
Of all things you do you have a favorite thing?
I don't think so. Again, I think to me they're all part of just this larger narrative of I love to tell stories. So whether that's visual on stage or with words on a page or in a digital image, it's all storytelling to me. So you know, in any given moment, I can get more excited about doing one over the other. But to say I have a favorite, I think would be disingenuous.
Because one of the things that certainly impressed me with your story is how you transitioned, I guess, as you got older. In other words, in another life, you weren't an entertainer performer for the most part. You were a IT guy.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in high school and in my early 20s as well, I was a stand-up comic in New York. Not a very successful one, but I mean, I got laughs, but I was never going to make a career out of it.
But it was your mother came?
Yes.
Yeah. And your wife?
Yeah. She actually probably did come at the time. But yeah, I did that, and I always enjoyed telling stories and entertaining people. But for a professional career, for the better part of my life, I was a database administrator.
And so what got you out of that?
Being a database administrator. No, I loved it. It was good money. I had a good job working for the city here for many, many years, but I think I just felt this need to be creative and be a part of especially the theater scene. I wound up meeting a lot of people here who were just very interesting and vibrant and had stories to tell. And I think I was dying a little bit every day just sitting behind a computer doing code. And luckily, I'm married to a wonderful woman who didn't want me to have a heart attack at 50. So about 6 years ago, and a daughter also who didn't want me to have a heart attack at 50. So we downsized our lives, and I started pursuing theater and photography, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Because I think that was just kind of blew me away the very first time I ever saw you on stage. I didn't see, the first thing you were in was at Montfort, I think you mentioned.
Probably, yeah. That I was acting in anyway, yeah.
And then I saw you in the next play, you and Sid, at 35 Below.
Yeah, Neighbors.
I was really impressed with that, with
a
mutual friend of ours, Dan Clancy.
Yes.
I thought it was just a really good show.
It was a really good show. I mean, actually, I could have done a terrible job, and it would have still been a really good show. It was just Steph Hicklin-Beckman directed it. It was a fantastic material, and Steph is actually probably the one who inspired me most to really pursue theater as more than just a hobby.
I remember saying to myself at the time, where was this guy hiding? Or, I hadn't seen you in anything in the Asheville.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you can't not see Rodney Smith.
I seem to be around a lot. I've been very fortunate to make a wonderful network of friends in the art community here who've been insanely supportive and have guided me along the way. So many people who have been trained and have their MFAs and their this, that, and the other thing, and I don't have any formal training or background in this, but to have people like Steph Hicklin-Beckman and Steve Samuels and Jack Cagnese and writers in my life like Lucio Del Vecchio and John Crutchfield and David Hopes, who've just been wonderfully supportive in anything that I've tried to do and offered me genuine critical feedback that's helped me along the way. So I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without this vibrant community that we have here.
What got you into writing?
I've always liked writing. I think, I used to write stand-up comedy when I was younger. I don't think I thought about really writing narrative comedy until I started working in the Asheville theater community. I started doing some work with the Magnetic Theater many years ago when they were sort of deep in their development program, where they were bringing in people and saying, we want your writing and let's help you develop that. And I had acted in a couple of shows with them and had made those connections. And so when they started this, I said, well, let me give it a shot. And I put together a short treatment for a play, which then a year later, Different Strokes produced for the Fringe Festival, Table 6. And once I realized, I think I got a taste of success. Once you once I realized that it was well received, it was like, oh, I can actually do this, and I enjoyed it. I want to keep doing it. So.
Well, I remember the first time I saw that particular
Mhm.
show. Again, I was blown away by the fact that it was completely packed. You know, and you put together this great cast.
Yeah.
I think you directed it also.
I did. I did. Yeah.
Is that tough? Directing your own stuff you write?
I think it's easier for me. I think it depends on the person. For me, it's easier because I write it like I'm directing it. I'm a very visual person to start with. I would say that even most of the stuff that I've put on stage has a very kind of cinematic feel to it. I'm more of a student of film than I am of theater, and I think I bring that sensibility to the stage. So even when I'm writing the stage directions and the moods that I write into a piece, if somebody took it and directed it the way I wrote it, it would have been the way I directed it. You know what I mean? I read all of that into the script for me. So.
Have you ever directed your own play, and that you also performed in?
That
Have you done that?
That I performed in? Not really. I've sort of with the comedy show, where I was directing the sketch comedy show and wound up being in one or two of the sketches, but nothing in a full length.
That would, I imagine that would be a challenge. You know, you have to do it all.
It's tough, I guess, to do it all. I know some people can do it. Jeff Cadney's does it well. Steve Samuels always seem to do it well. I don't think I'd want to. I think I need to be on the outside to direct a show. But even the comedy shows, it was very fortunate that I was working with a group of people who also had great eyes. So my entire cast kind of became the assistant director for those sketches that I had to be in.
I often ask directors this question,
Mhm.
having to do with if you had a preference to act or direct. Do you have a preference?
Direct, absolutely.
And most people tell me that Stephanie does, other people as well. How come? You don't have to memorize the lines?
That's actually that's part of it. I'm not a big fan of memorizing lines, and I think for me, I like the sort of like the painter's perspective. I like the idea that the words on the page and the actors on the stage are my canvas, and I create the visual with that. I don't feel that other end so much of theater where I want to create a character and emote something out of myself that way. I like the puzzle solving of being a director. How do you make this work? How do we stage this? How does blocking work? That's all a lot more exciting to me than actually being on stage and saying lines and being the center of attention. I've liked it. I've enjoyed it, but it's not my choice. It's not my favorite part of it.
One of the things that's always impressed me with you, Rodney, is the fact that you also seem to be able to bring lots of people together in a collaborative effort. Lots of people work very well by themselves,
Right.
but you really seem to have the ability to not only work well with others, but bring others together.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually. Again, this comes down to just I've made some amazing friends here, and like Table 6 was the perfect example. Here was I'd never written a show before, I'd never directed a show before, and while Steph backed me for the play to get a cast of Tracy Johnston Crumb and Trinity Smith and Kirby Gibson, all of these people who had been and Carrie Nichols, who'd always been in the Asheville scene and acting for years, and each one of them had way more experience than I had, to all say yes to this play was like amazing to me. And I think that very first show was, I can't let them down. I can't suck as a director. And I think because of feeling like I was a fraud, I guess at the point, or not up to the task, evidently I was, but I didn't feel that way. I put a lot of the creative part of it. I made it a lot more of a collaborative thing, I think, because I felt like I needed the help directing the show. And then that's just sort of become my MO moving forward. I think I've luckily have a reputation for not putting on a bad show. I'm not going to say that everything I've touched is gold, but so far nothing I've done has sucked. So I think people feel okay about saying, all right, I'll do Rodney's show. At least he won't make me look like an idiot on stage.
I think one of the things you do well, but it's probably a very tough part of being a director, is that your cast seems to always be perfect for the show,
Thank you.
And as I'm reading the shows I've seen, I think I've seen just about all the stuff you've done here,
Thanks.
each one, everyone in the cast seemed to be perfect. Now I'm thinking, and unfortunately he's no longer in the area, but Terry Tempest.
Yeah.
And who's the?
We had Cody.
Cody was.
Yeah.
It's a shame he's no longer in the
Yeah,
area.
yeah, he was amazing.
Was he perfect?
Yes, he
for
was.
that role.
Yeah, he was.
And just that's probably a challenge to be a director, because you get a lot of good people, I guess, come out for stuff.
Yeah, and more often than not, I search for people. Like, I go see folks on stage, and that's how they audition for me. When I see them in other things, and then I get a chance to meet them, and that's the bigger thing. One of the things I take great pride in my shows is, I think one of the things that I do best is bringing a cast together, and beyond them just being good actors and right for the part, I try to choose a group of people who really work well with each other and are open to throwing stuff around and having fun with each other. So if you come see a show of mine and you go, wow, they look like they're having so much fun on stage, well, yeah, they're having fun off stage too. That's kind of part of the process. It's a 3 or 4 week long party for a group of people, and when we're done, we have a play. That's kind of how I like to run a show. So I think that goes a long way.
And we mentioned that, again, just knocked my socks off when I saw Night of the Living, Dead.
Yeah.
And I had no interest in seeing it. I'd seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And how could I enjoy it? But I did.
Thanks.
But it was fun too.
I hope so.
To watch this.
Yeah.
And like you said, the actors seemed to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we had a really good time doing that show.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about now some of the stuff coming up at Magnetic Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were talking also about off the air, but you did it last year, I thought it was brilliant. You're going to do it again
Thanks.
too. This whole crimes and I love the title, crimes and
misdemeanings.
Misdemeaning.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that?
The Crimes and Misdemeanings a couple of years ago, Adam Arthur started the Super Happy Radio Hour, which was a podcast that we did with Magnetic Theater, and it was we would do live readings of these comedy sketches in front of a live audience, and then make a podcast out of it. And it was a really great show. We had a good time doing it. And then Michelle Luzon, who's a good friend of mine, a friend of both of ours, in fact, she's the executive director of Arms Around ASD, and we decided to do a fundraiser for Arms Around ASD. So we did this 3-day telethon, bringing lots of talent from around the area, stand-up comedians, musicians, and then we would do these sketch comedy readings. And it went really well, and we had a good time, and I started to feel like, what if we took this to the next level, and instead of doing these as radio reads, actually perform this as a sketch comedy show. And so I put out for writing, and got wonderful feedback from a lot of great writers here in town, and I said I didn't want to do a Saturday Night Live, nothing that was topical in today's news. I wanted to do more of a Monty Python, Carol Burnett sort of show where the sketches would be funny 30 years from now. And again, was fortunate to get a great cast and crew, and we put it up last year, and it did well, so now we're doing them twice a year.
And the fun thing about this too, it was like unlike anything I'd seen in Asheville,
Yeah.
I've seen lots of things. But it's almost like a variety show. You even
Very much so.
It was fun. You brought in comedians too.
Yeah, a comedian would open the first act, and then the second. Very, very Saturday Night Live in structure, where we would have each show would have a stand-up comic in one act, and then another talent in the second act, whether it be a burlesque artist or a musician or a magician or something kind of fun like that. But yeah, very much a comedy variety show.
Again, what was great about it was I hadn't seen anything like that, at least in the Asheville.
Thanks.
It's just so different.
Yeah.
And you said you did, I think I've seen 2 of them you did. So you did
Mm-hmm.
it for the fundraiser for Arms Around ASD.
Right.
Then you did it again.
We did another one in July.
Okay.
And then, so next year we're going to have one in February and one in July as well.
Is that the plan to keep doing them twice a year?
Yeah, and the February one will be a fundraiser for Arms Around ASD once again, and then the second one will just be a show for the sake of doing a fundraiser for Magnetic Theater, I guess, and the cast and crew. Yeah.
Talk about Magnetic Theater. So you got involved in that, and now you're associate producer.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the things you do at Magnetic Theater?
Primarily, I do new programming, so things like the comedy show and the horror show that we have coming up. Now Andrew Gall has just departed. He was the co-artistic director, so Katie Jones is now the sole artistic director, and she and I have been working together to put together new programming. So while she primarily is dealing with the main stage, full straight play shows, I'm doing the weekend shows, booking stand-up comics, other acts that we're going to have to do specialty shows nights on the weekends, so we can kind of have something more than just plays. Not that there's anything wrong with the theater just doing plays, but we found it's been really nice to bring in new people with who might not be interested in saying, I want to go see a straight play, but would gladly come see a sketch comedy show or come see a stand-up comedian perform for a night, or a musical act or burlesque or something to that effect. So that's where I come in.
And talk about the one that's coming up in, not this weekend, it'll be
Next weekend, yeah.
Is what?
Next weekend, so this is an interesting new experiment. This is a one-act play show called The Horror Show, Tales from the Red Room. And what I wanted to do was, I've always been a fan of those horror anthology movies like Creepshow or Tales from the Crypt, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to put a show like that up on stage? So reached out to Jameson Ridenauer, who wrote Terry Tempest, and he's also the writer and producer of a wonderful horror podcast called Palimpsest, and asked him to write a piece. And David Hopes, who has written many pieces of work around town, brilliant pieces of work, he agreed to write a piece. Andrew Gall wrote a piece. I wrote a piece. And then my dear friend Stu Goldstein, who's been a friend for over 30 years and writing creative partner for most of that time, also wrote in some bridge pieces for it. And got a wonderful cast, and we're going to put that up next weekend. And it's going to run for one weekend, 24th through 26th.
So this is just original stuff you don't see here?
Yeah, it's all original material.
Okay, and so who's in the cast?
The cast is, let's see, it's Sonia D'Andrea, who has done many things over at Montfort. She's never done anything. She's amazing. We've got Daniel Moore, who's done many things at the Magnetic, and I've worked with him in a couple of shows. He was brilliant in the comedy shows that we had done last year. Tippin, who is amazing in everything. Brooks Wallace. I can just say they're all amazing. Let's see, Brooks Wallace. We get Blair Dotson Smith. I forget somebody. Who am I forgetting? Darren Marshall.
Okay.
And Miles Rice.
Oh, sure. Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
Miles Rice, who's in the current show, Legacy of Millie Aldini. It's an unbelievable show.
Well, let's talk about that one, then we'll talk also about the one next weekend.
Sure.
But talk a little bit about that one I just saw this past weekend. Again, we don't want to use amazing
Yeah.
all the time, but it is an amazing
Isn't it a
show.
really good show?
Really surprised me.
Yeah.
Well, and talk a little bit about that show. It's,
Sure.
This weekend is this weekend.
Yeah, this is the final weekend. Please catch this show if you haven't gotten a chance to. It's a ghost story, and it's a beautifully written ghost story. Maybe not what you'd expect from a ghost story. It's not so much about haunting and scary. It's sort of a comedic, like a dark comedy, but serious themed ghost story. Amazingly acted. It's written by Laurie Jones, Katie Jones' sister. Katie Jones directed it. Amazing cast, and I mean, there's as a part of the Magnetic Theater, it seems a given that I would say this show's fantastic. This show's fantastic, but this one really kind of made me feel like it was one of the best shows that we've done.
And I mean, there's some things in that show that just were again, we keep using amazing,
Mhm.
fantastic.
Fantastic,
But
awesome.
that show just surprised me because I had no
Yeah.
expectations for it. My wife didn't have expectations on it, but she loved it.
Yeah.
And especially, I don't want to give it away, but especially that second act when people were coming in
Yeah.
and out of what they're coming in and out of.
Yeah.
And my wife kept saying, "Oh my God, oh my God."
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the show without giving it away, but
But was that just a complete surprise?
yeah.
And that's one of the things, Rodney, I think you folks do, Katie, you, everybody else at Magnetic Theater. It's kind of cool because it's usually something a little bit different. You know, you're not going to see the same old. You're going to see stuff that
Yeah.
you don't see elsewhere.
Right.
And is that something you try to do?
Yeah, we are always trying to, I mean, I think that's sort of the history of the Magnetic, and this is our 10th year. And it's always been, to a certain extent, kind of the mission of the Magnetic. I know, when Steve Samuels was the artistic director, he, coming out of the Ridiculous Theater in New York, he tended to look toward the weirder kind of theater that you just really weren't seeing anywhere. I hate to use the word avant-garde because it almost seems that's become synonymous with way too weird. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, finding original stuff that just you're not going to see at ACT, or you're not going to see at Montfort, you're not going to see at NC Stage. your kind of odd or off-Broadway sort of things. And we're keeping that tradition alive with a lot of the new material around here. And that's been the most exciting part about working with Magnetic Theaters is getting to work with people like David Hopes and Travis Lowe, Jeff Messer, who've been bringing in these interesting new perspectives on what theater can be, pushing the limits, saying it doesn't have to be just a drama or just a musical or just a comedy. We can do a horror comedy musical, you know. We can.
Well, the same thing too. The show just before, I can't come up with the name, but it was the first time it ever been done in Nashville about the Jewish.
Yeah, Indecent. Yeah.
Was that fantastic?
Yeah, gripping.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it had never been done anything like that.
Yeah.
Kind of had some music in it, but boy, was that a surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
The horror thing will be a surprise as well.
I
What
hope
nights
so.
is that running?
That's going to be October 24th through 26th. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's
Okay.
only 3 performances.
Okay, how come you're only doing 3?
Supply and demand. One of the things that we found with doing the comedy shows is there are certain shows that we kind of feel like, sure, we can go ahead and run it for 4 weeks, but are we going to get enough people in Asheville who would be interested in seeing it for 4 weeks? And of course, you know how, not to sound insulting, but a local audience for a local theater has a tendency to go, oh, it's going on for another 2 weeks. I'll catch it next week. I'll catch it next week. If you put out a show and say you've got 3 chances to see it, people will come see it. And we've already noticed that the ticket sales for this show have already started to kind of creep up pretty quickly on us. And I think it's just, well, we only got a certain amount of time to see it. Let's go get our tickets now.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned that to me this past weekend. The idea that I kind of like the Sunday matinees, but maybe Asheville doesn't like Sunday matinees. You know.
I think I like Sunday matinees as well. Unfortunately, this show is not going to have a Sunday matinee, mostly due to our turnaround for the next show. But generally, Sunday matinees are something that we're going to keep for certain shows.
And as you said, for certain shows, but I think also the nature of this show seems to lend itself more to, nighttime
I think so.
performance and
I think so.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Rodney, let's talk about some of the things that,
Sure.
that Magnetic Theater is involved in. The big thing, of course, and we should encourage people to see it this year because they're not going to see it for a while, is the upcoming Christmas show.
Yes.
Talk about both what it is of this Christmas and then what's going to be happening moving forward.
Well,
Again.
I can. So the Bernstein Family Christmas Spectacular is something that the Magnetic has done just about every year since their existence, maybe every year since their existence. And it is a comedy variety show that is holiday themed. And it has been probably our biggest selling show every year. It's almost become famous around here. You go see A Christmas Carol, you come see the Bernstein Family Christmas Show. It's big. And this year is going to be the last year of the Bernstein Family Christmas Show. Sadly, I think it's just run its course. Everybody who's involved has put in a solid 10 years. I think they would like the show to go out on a high note, so they don't want to run it into the ground, so they've decided to retire the show after this year. And next year, I can now finally announce out loud, I will be writing the next year's holiday show, and it will be a stage adaptation of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It's going to be a complete sort of drive-in B-movie experience. We're going to convert that whole theater into a low-budget sci-fi film.
By the way, I have one other idea for you, if I
Okay,
can.
sure.
And I mentioned to Katie as well, but I think we should have a skit or a comeback show with the amazing, the family, the Christmas family, their kids, so. But wouldn't that be fun?
That
though?
actually would be fun.
The next generation.
Right.
What happened to these people 10 years from now or 20 years
Right,
from now?
right.
Food for thought. Rodney, if anybody wants to find out more information about all the great stuff being done at Magnetic Theater, best bet is what?
Well, we do have a Facebook page and an Instagram, and we're on all the social medias, and so just look up the Magnetic Theater and you'll find us in any of those. And then our website is themagnetictheater.org.
Okay, we look forward to seeing Rodney Smith again for the record 43rd.
43rd time, yes.
Whatever.
We'll see what we can do.
And your show next weekend is going to be a lot of fun.
Please come. It is going to be a lot of fun, and again, I hope this doesn't sound. You need to get tickets now. That show is one weekend, and we know it's going to sell well. So get them now.
Thanks for coming on board, Rodney.
Thank you,
Speak to
Blaine.
soon.
It's always great to be here.
Okay, as Rodney works his way out, I should mention that support for this show and WPVM is underwritten by the Grill Movie House, Asheville's alternative cinema. Grill Movie House is an independent, locally owned 3-screen cinema located in downtown Asheville, North Carolina. For current features, visit the Grill website at grillmoviehouse.com or the Grill's social media pages. As our next guest works his way into the studio, I'd like to recognize some upcoming shows in the Asheville area. Rod, you mentioned The Legacy of Amelia Aldea, and that's running through this weekend at the Magnetic Theater, information magnetictheater.com. Also, another show, It Didn't Happen, An Erotic Odyssey, October 18th to 26th at the Worthing Center for the Performing Arts. You'll get to see a marvelous play written by Judy Calabrese and directed by Philippe Andre Coquette, and that's going to be, again, the coming weekend and the following weekend, and information on that is www.dwtheater.com. And lastly, at the Attic Salt Theater on October 20th, one show only at 3 p.m., you'll get to see my friend Elaine Chandler do her one-woman show performance, and it's called Upper Hand. I think you're in for a treat if you see that one. And that information will be at atticsalt.org. It's now my pleasure to introduce my second guest of Blaine's Roar Show today, and he is Paul Gerber. Welcome aboard, Paul.
Good morning, Blaine.
Okay, and you can also say hello to any fans and friends at the Facebook world. We're
Hi,
on
guys.
Facebook world.
Hello.
Okay, great. And she mentioned that Paul is, we keep using the term last show, but he's an amazing actor and singer. And I had the pleasure of, Paul, I guess, of meeting you first in the show of Hands on a Hard Body.
Yes.
And I think I may have mentioned to you off the air, but my wife was a little disappointed in the show in that she had thought I was going to be hard body, and then when she saw I wasn't, she was a little disappointed.
Disappointment there, yeah.
Okay, but musical theater, Paul has been in musical theater, I guess, for over 35 years of professional experience.
Correct.
Some of its credits include Rent, Titanic. I love, by the way, somebody should bring Titanic to Asheville.
I agree. It's a great production.
I haven't seen it, I see a lot of stuff. 10 years, I haven't seen anybody do it. Great show.
It is. It's a difficult production. That's probably why a lot of people don't do it.
Why is it difficult?
Very expensive.
Is it?
Yeah, and a lot of theaters just don't want to spend the money to do it. When I did it, it wasn't a community theater. It was a professional theater, and we had a scaled down version of the production from what they did on Broadway. But it was still somewhere in the ballpark of about $200,000 to do the production.
Because I saw a production of community theater, and it's just like you said, first of all, it's a big cast,
Yes.
but it was a very scaled down version.
Yes.
They just had kind of a simulated boat, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
And that's how you could do it.
Yeah, no, it's a hard production to do, very taxing on the body, as well as the memorization is crazy. The music is very hard to learn, even for the most experienced vocalists. Maury Yeston is just he's a great writer, but boy, he can really write some doozies when it comes to music.
But think about that, or you speak to Jerry Crouch or somebody you're in touch with. We should really look to do that sometime in Asheville.
Oh, it'd be great. You need a big stage to do it, that's for sure. 'Cause it's
Yeah, again, I saw a scaled down version.
Mhm.
It was a relatively small stage, but it was really good. I guess maybe because of the story and the music.
Yeah. No, we did it on a the set that we had. There was no set change because it's all on the ship, the set itself was around 4 stories high,
Wow.
and on a pulley system to make it actually tilt. So the whole set actually tilted as the ship was starting to sink, and so you were having to do scenes on a tilted stage the whole time. You're trying to focus on your lines and you're singing, and the whole time the ship's starting to move on you at the same time. It's very difficult.
But now you ruined it for me. So the ship sings?
Unfortunately, it does. It does. Yeah, there is.
Spoiler alert. Okay.
There's no Jack and Rose. There's no floating on a door in the water. It just no.
Okay, so now you don't have to say because we know the ending.
Yeah.
Paul was also, and we'll talk a little bit about it in a second, in Hands on Hard Body. And he also was in Monty Python's Spamalot.
Correct.
He's also been on Broadway stages as well as multiple national tours and cruise ships. And the question I always ask Paul, do you remember your first role?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. First role, I was in Oliver. What normally do Oliver if they're involved in the theater. And I was Noah Claypole, who was the little bully that picked on Oliver at times, and just kind of picked him as his target in most cases. So you get to kind of kick Oliver in the pants and slap him around a little bit.
How old were you when you did that?
So that I would have been around 10.
But you were even in stuff before then, is that
Yeah,
correct?
before that, it was just smaller roles, and then of course we talked off the air about the first time that I was exposed to the stage, and I was actually on a cruise ship in a passenger talent show, and I actually did. I can still remember to this day. It was Michael Jackson's "Wanna Be Starting Something" was the song.
And this was, you actually sang it or lip synced it?
No, I sang it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I started. My family and I, we cruised a lot when I was a child. My grandparents always took us on a cruise every year, and so the Passenger Talent Show was the first thing I seeked out when we went onto a ship.
So you knew in advance that you were going to be in that talent show?
You have to audition
Right.
for it, but I mean, I think everybody got into it. I don't think there was a whole lot of people that auditioned, because at that time, when you're performing in front of 500 or 600 people that are packing the auditorium on the ship, it can be scary. To me, it was energetic. It was something that just got me fired up, and I couldn't wait to do it.
Now, do you have a video of that performance? Well, I had this great idea, you may have heard me say this, but wouldn't this be a cool thing for some local theater to do as a fundraiser? ACT or Magnetic Theater, you name it, but everybody's asked to come and do their very first role, so that your wife could see, what it was like, or your son, or wouldn't that be a great thing to do?
It would.
But
it would.
you'd have to do that particular thing.
Yeah. No, it would be fun. It was one of those things that I every year I went in the following cruise, I memorized. I don't know if you remember the old Bill Cosby himself
Right.
stand-up routine that he did that was filmed. I memorized the entire dentist routine, and I did it on the talent show.
And you were a kid too at
I
the time.
was 8 years old, I think, when I did that.
Now, going beyond that, did you act in school productions as well?
No, didn't do anything
Really?
in school. Kept it on the outside of school. I was always more involved, stuff at home, playing sports as a kid. I kept that type of thing on the outside of school, even through high school.
Did you know you wanted to be a performer?
I did. To me, there's nothing like the live stage. I've tried to do film, and I was bored. It's not the same. There's nothing like that energy that hits you when you have to be always on point. And if you screw up, you better cover. And I love that. To me, that's such an energizing feeling. And it's I hadn't done theater in so long, and I came back just recently to do Spamalot, and there's 15 years since the last production I did Spamalot, and I felt so at home and so like I just had never left. It's that kind of feeling. So it'll always be in my blood, regardless.
The thing that blows me away about a performer, and you in particular, is that you can remember dialogue. You can remember, like Spamalot, for example, you not only had to remember dialogue, but you also had to sing, you had to dance, you had to do lots of different things.
Yep, 4 characters I had to memorize.
Oh, did you really too?
Four different roles
At
in
one
one
time?
show.
Yeah, is that tough?
It's very tough, because you have to change your voice to sound like somebody completely different. So you have the first part was Dennis Galahad. Dennis Galahad was kind of wimpy, nerdy, but liked to constantly talk about politics and explain to people why we live in this autonomous commune. We live in, and then but it was a high pitched nerdy voice, and then all of a sudden he changes into Sir Galahad. Suddenly Sir Galahad's a knight. He's a manly man, so he has to deepen his voice. And then you had Herbert's father. Herbert's father was an older gentleman with a long beard and a bald head, and overprotective father of a less than manly son. And then you had the Black Knight, which was my favorite of all of them, because it's the Black Knight. Monty Python Bond fans out there, who wouldn't want to be the Black Knight? So, and you had to learn how to, do a short sword fighting scene, and then learn how to get your limbs cut off. I mean, it was just a crazy show. Awesome show, though. Yeah.
What got you into it after 15 years?
So I was, as you know, I had my first marriage, and then that ended, and then I met my wife now. And during my first marriage, it was just more like, I just had to focus on work and outside of the theater, and just didn't have a lot of time or support to do that. So my ex-wife and I ran a children's theater down in Florida every summer. That was a camp that we ran. It was a theater camp. So I got to have my hand in that a little bit, but performing, no. And then we moved to Spartanburg, which is where we were just living. And I got involved with the Spartanburg Little Theater down there. And my wife now, I told her that they're doing Spamalot. I said, it's a show I would love to get my hands on. She said, well, why don't you just go ahead and do it? Wow, okay, really? And we talked about it, and she was so supportive of me doing this. And I told her, I warned her the commitment, because she hadn't been involved in the theater before, so she didn't know the time and commitment it took. And ironically enough, that was actually my first community theater production. All the productions I had done in my life were professional grade productions. They weren't community theaters. So Spamalot was my very first. And I told her, I said, it's almost over 2 months of rehearsal. I said, it's 4 nights a week, and then once you get closer to the show, it's like every night. Then you have the shows, and she was so supportive over all of it. And she's like, but you love it, so go do it. I can't ask for anything more than that.
And we should mention that not only in terms of your wife being supportive, but for anybody who puts time into community theater, but even professional theater as well.
Yes.
Time, people don't realize that. That's why, Paul, I love going to shows and just seeing you and other performers, because to realize that, you might do a show for 3 weekends, 4 weekends, whatever. You've been working on it for 6 weeks. A lot of time.
6 and sometimes 8, sometimes 10 to put a production together. It's a lot of time. People don't realize, they're like, 6 weeks, that's nothing.
Right.
It's nothing to you if you go 6 weeks in your regular everyday life. Yeah, 6 weeks flies immediately, it's gone. But when you're in a production, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time away from home and family, which I am, very into, and I love having family. I love having the family I have now, and I know it's a commitment, but it is something that I do love, and I do have that bug for it that will never go away.
Well, on top of that, when you did Hands on a Hard Body, you were also commuting.
Yes.
From time. I mean, you were living in South Carolina, but you were staying in Hendersonville, and every time, that's a big, so it's not only the rehearsal time, you had the drive back and forth.
Yeah, and and honestly, the reason that it was done, and I guess we had this to talk about too, but was this was the second production of Hands on a Hard Body that I had done. So I was familiar with it was the same role. So I was already familiar with the part and the music and the lines. It was just brushing up for me. Whereas everybody else was singing for the first time here, I already knew it. So the commute and the time and effort that it took, for me, it made it a little bit easier because I knew the show. If it was something that I had never seen or heard of before, it probably would have been a lot more difficult to do.
As you talk about the show, I'm thinking about it, and versus Spamalot, this was such a good show. I mean, it did relatively well for ACT, but in some respects, I wish more people had seen it because it was so good, Paul.
It was. It's one of those shows that people are like, well, I never heard of it, so I'm not going to go see it. Those are the novice people, the novice theater goers that, unless it's a big name show, we don't want to see that kind of stuff because it's usually dumb and stupid and whatever. But Hands on a Hard Body, I mean, obviously I've done it twice. I don't do roles more than once unless I really like that show, and you have to have a love for it. And that show, and the role that I played of Benny Perkins, it was just such a complex character, and I most of my career I played characters that were the comedic relief or the goof or whatever, and Benny was quite the opposite. Benny was a very interesting fellow, and he had a lot of demons that he was hiding, and I love that kind of role. That's what I really wanted to get myself into. So
and also as a compliment to you is I just loved watching you in that show. You know, especially at the very end. You know, you came and people wouldn't have seen this, but to watch you get psyched, you know, off the stage and just come on to it, and it was really an impressive performance. I think it was just, man, I just loved it and never tired of it. You know, and
No.
the music I never tired on. The message, it's just a great show. I thought, and you really did
is.
it.
Well, and it's a show. What's cool about this show is that it actually happened. It was real life, and sometimes you can't believe it as you're sitting here either playing or watching the other characters and thinking these were real people. As strange as some of them were, these were real folks, and you know, it's to be able to do something like that where you have to really be pretty spot on because you don't want to tarnish somebody's name as a real person you're playing, you know. It was I felt that well, I hoped that, you know, Mr. Perkins would have been proud.
Yeah, the question that'd be interesting to see if get his reaction to. But it would also be interesting if they ever did that contest again, you know. And I think they banned it.
They did.
They don't do it anymore.
They did.
It's a shame because it got me thinking that, boy, I don't think I would do that, or I don't think I'd last more than, you know, a couple hours.
I don't think I would either. I can't even imagine the stamina that would have taken to stand for 4 or 5 days and without sleep and, you know, a little bit of food here and there and water or whatever, but to be able to last that long over a truck, unbelievable.
But you know, and well, it'd be spoiler alert, the show's not playing anymore, and you didn't even win it. You know, that's.
I know.
I thought you were going to.
Twice. I've been twice. I still didn't win the yeah.
The in terms of performing, do you have a favorite role you've ever played aside from the Benny Perkins?
Benny's definitely one of my favorites. You know, I would probably have to say Harold Bride in Titanic. It was such a powerful show, and obviously, you know, no spoiler alert, but it is a true story.
And by the way, that's probably fun to do too, as you were saying, shows that are true stories.
Yeah.
I mean, Spamalot's not true.
It's loosely based.
Loosely based.
But yeah, I mean the role of Harold Bride and being that messenger that delivered the iceberg warnings to the captain, which the captain conveniently ignored, so he could keep the first class passengers impressed, and to play somebody like that who had all this knew that this iceberg was coming and these iceberg warnings were out there and they were just being ignored and he couldn't do anything about it. It was a very emotional role when you really think about what eventually happened, and you think about the lives of the passengers that were there. It was pretty haunting.
How about performing in a show versus being on a cruise ship? Do you have a preference? What do you do? Talk a little bit about some of the stuff that are on cruise ships.
Mostly musical reviews, things of that nature. At one point, I mean, now a lot of the ships they do full blown, just regular productions, like, you know, Mamma Mia, Little Shop of Horrors, things like that. But at the time, they were mostly musical reviews, so it was just compilations of different shows thrown into one show. So music from different musicals, different eras. You know, so that it's fun to do different songs from different shows, but I definitely prefer the structure of doing an entire show, just as it's written. So I think I'd probably prefer the regular stage as opposed to a cruise ship stage.
How long did you do the cruise ship thing?
6 months.
6 months. That was enough.
Contract, yeah, 6-month contract, and you know, you do back and forth for 6 months to the same islands over and over again. After a while, it becomes kind of stagnant, and it's a good amount of time. I mean, I know people that have done it for years, and that's not me. I love cruising. I love going on a vacation on a cruise. To me, there is no vacation like it. I love it. My wife, we went on our honeymoon on a cruise. It was her first cruise, and she loved it. Definitely bitten by the cruise ship bug. But you know, performing, it's a different story. It's not the same life, and you know, there comes a point where it's time to kind of move on.
Stupid when you took that honeymoon that they didn't you said for the most part have talent shows, but that would have been pretty cool. You could have gotten up, and I even told your wife and just gotten up and entered the talent show.
Yeah, well, now they've replaced it with karaoke bars.
Oh, is that it really?
So, I mean, of course, you do karaoke. We did that, or I did that. She watched. But yes.
Is that, do you enjoy karaoke?
Oh yeah, love it. It kind of gives you the goofy sense of still being a performer. But you know, I did in town here. Actually, I DJ'd for a number of years and did karaoke shows at bars and restaurants and things like that, and then of course did weddings. But the karaoke stuff was always still my favorite, just because it kept me still being able to sing, albeit not exactly the same crowds. But
Who was your favorite performer to do on karaoke?
oh gosh, there's so many. Probably Billy Joel, consummate performer, and his songs, his songwriting, to me, it's second to none. He's one of my favorite songwriters. My favorite songwriter of all time is Paul Simon, truth be told. But in the karaoke world, Billy Joel, and then of course, anytime I can read a bar and know that it's okay to do a Broadway song or two, I will definitely do that.
Well, you also know play an instrument as well.
Saxophone.
Saxophone. And do you still play the saxophone?
Periodically, I have my saxophones, but lately it's been it's definitely been more about the voice for me. But I did played saxophone in middle school and high school and in college, and then I doubled in college. I doubled as a saxophone and theater major, so it was tossing a lot of stuff.
Had I known, I should have had you bring the saxophone today.
Yeah, a little rusty.
Or no, next time we'll have you practice for
Maybe,
it and
maybe.
do some saxophone.
We'll see.
Reminds me of my days, Paul. In college, I played trumpet in junior high school. But in college, I remember maybe the first day of college, I pawned my trumpet out my trumpet playing career. But you could get money to go out with women, so my music career went by the wayside. The down the road, do you see yourself doing anything else in the entertainment business?
I mean, yeah, if the role is right, I'm waiting to see what the following season brings. Probably not the current one anywhere that I've seen, but there is definitely one role specifically that I'm holding out for. And Jerry Crouch and I have talked about this in quite a great bit of detail. My favorite musical of all time is Jekyll and Hyde.
Wow, I could see you doing
And to play
that.
the title.
Oh.
It is my dream role. If I was told you could play one more role in your life, what is it? That's it.
Why could I see you playing that role? Have you ever done it?
No, it's eluded me.
But what a great idea, Paul, because one of the things you're saying, you mentioned Titanic, you mentioned Jekyll and Hyde. I've been in this area 10 plus years. I haven't seen anybody do it.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be a great show to do?
It would.
I'd love it.
It would. I would jump all over it if I heard wind of it coming, or that they were going to put it up on a season. I'd be the first one in line. I don't care how early I have to get there to audition.
But you have to get your hair longer.
Well, actually, truth be told, I've seen the show.
Right.
I won't even mention how many times, but on Broadway, I've seen national tours of it, and almost every single actor, it's a wig.
Oh, is that what I would imagine?
It's a wig.
Oh, but I love the show, though. Do you have any influences on your career?
Yeah, my biggest influence actually is Terrence Mann, who is a world-renowned performer. He has originated roles such as Gerber and the Broadway production of Les Mis, Rum Tum Tugger in the original Cats. He has played Chauvelin in The Scarlet Pimpernel. He's been on TV. He's been in movies. Matter of fact, he was in, if you remember the movie A Chorus Line, he was the choreographer. That was Terrence Mann. Huge influence on my life.
By the way, have you ever done Les Miserables?
I have not.
Because I could see you in
That
that
would be a
too.
great one. Yeah.
Wow, talk about great roles.
Yeah.
And the only one I know who did that was a Flat Rock did a couple of years ago. Did a great production.
Yes.
But
yes.
boy, could I see you in that role.
I would love to do something I mean, actually, Gerber is actually my favorite role in the show.
But I could just see you in it. You
Yeah.
know, that'd be it. So if you're listening, Jerry or anybody else, that's another possibility for you. That'd be a great show for ACT to do, wouldn't that?
It would, absolutely. Yeah, it actually would go over really well, I think, on that stage as well.
I could see you Gerber. I could see you being the other role. You know,
Valjean.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of, like I said, that age now where I could play Gerber or Valjean. I think I'm a little old for Marius now.
A little bit.
But Yeah, that's something I would definitely
Where I've
do.
never seen you do comedy, haven't seen you do too many things. The innkeeper, I think, would be a fun role to
It's
do.
a great part.
Yeah, isn't it?
Great part. There's some big names that have played that role in the past, and it's phenomenal.
And can steal the show,
Oh yeah. I mean, if you have the right person in the part, the innkeeper and his wife.
But really, and
Great.
it's talking about a great play too, to give it some comic relief,
Mhm.
Very good show. What made you leave? What made you stop becoming a professional performer?
So I've been asked this a lot. So when I was coming, I had moved back to my hometown, Miami, Florida. That's where I'm from New York. I was living in New York at the time, and I was kind of at a point where I was a bit burnt out, and I needed to either decide what I wanted to do with my life, if I wanted to kind of hit a crossroads. And theater, of course, passionate to love, but it's taxing on the body. And professional theater, people have no idea the amount of time and effort it takes to pull it off and do it successfully. So I was at home and staying with my mom at the time, and kind of sat and wondered, and I decided, I'm gonna go get a job somewhere, do some work, and I wound up at a restaurant, which happened to be a Broadway themed restaurant. Of course, I couldn't stay that far away from it, and it was one of these restaurants where they did music throughout each hour,
Oh, I love that,
different
yeah.
musicals and different songs from different musicals. And then I met my first wife there, and things progressed pretty quickly with us, and I met her, and we got involved, and then eventually we, it was that decision to start something real serious, and I knew that bringing a family into something like this, it's not always the best idea, because it takes so much time to do professional theater, and it takes a lot of time away from family, lots more than community theater. And I knew that was not the kind of life that I wanted to bring a family into, so I had to find something else to do.
And I was going to ask you that. So in your spare time, you also are into the IT field.
I am. I have been involved in IT for the last 20 years now. It's my 20th year.
How did you get involved in that?
It started in retail. The old Comp USA, remember Comp
Right,
USA?
sure.
I actually started with them, merchandising originally, but then I got heavily involved with what they called at the time was their upgrades counter. And so, it was hardware upgrades for desktop computers, sound cards, video cards, and that was a whole big thing. It was from that point I built my skill set from that, and here I am 20 years later, and I'm now in a senior level position on the desktop support side of things. I never thought 20 years ago I'd be here.
What's kind of cool about that, as similar to theater, a lot of it was self-taught though,
It is. Matter of fact, I have not gone to school for it, never took a class for it. Everything I know I have learned by doing.
Paul Gerber, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, find out more about either what you've done in the past or more exciting what you're going to be doing in the future, best bet is check out your Facebook page, I
Facebook,
guess?
yeah, would be probably the best bet, because I'll post, whatever show it is, I'll just post it up, and every update we have, it'll be on my Facebook page.
And you got me excited now about seeing you in an upcoming production sooner rather than later, and especially let's get Jerry to do the one show.
Yeah, Jerry, if you're out there listening, Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and
Just
Hyde.
say.
Well, just say is right. I'd like to thank you, Paul, for being my guest the second half hour on the Blaine Roll Show. Also to Rodney Smith for being my guest the first half hour. Amy Prisnash, my producer, and to Zuzu Welch for part of the music you heard at the beginning of the show and you'll now be hearing at the end. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on the new WPBM and LP in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPBMFM.org and watch on WPBM's Facebook page. See you next week.